Mikhail Chigorin was one of the last romantic chess players, which is chess that's all about dynamism, tactics, and playing for the initiative. And today you'll see a very entertaining game from his 1892 World Championship match against Wilhelm Steinitz. It also features an opening that's well known among club players, and it's a great example of what can happen when you neglect your development. Let's start this off. Steinitz had white and opened with e4, e5, knight f3, knight to c6, and after bishop to c4, the Italian opening. The safest way to play is with bishop to c5, called the Giuco piano or quiet game, and after castles and knight to f6, black just develops quickly and usually castles next move. However, in today's game, Chigorin went for the sharpest continuation with knight to f6, and as you can see, now the queen isn't defending g5 anymore, and so white can go for the attack with knight to g5. Now, many of you probably know this line as the fried liver attack, and it does look pretty dangerous. White is already attacking f7, but Chigorin really liked sharp counterattacking chess. And he also knows that it'll be a complicated game and that black will get free play for his pieces, and that's just what he's looking for. Black has to play d5, there's no other way to defend f7, and after takes, many games have been played with knight takes d5, and then you get these crazy games with knight takes f7, king takes, and queen f3 check, which is also complicated, but it's also unsound. So Chigorin instead went for the normal move knight to a5, attacking the bishop, and after bishop check, c6, and a trade on c6, the bishop retreated to e2. So black did sacrifice a pawn, but soon he'll get a lead in development after bishop c5 and castles. However, first h6, driving away the knight, and here Steinitz avoided the main line with knight to f3, because Chigorin was an expert in this line with e4 and queen to c7. Instead, he went to h3, and here it can still get double-edged with g5 or bishop takes knight, but Chigorin opted for rapid development with bishop to c5, which of course can't be wrong, and after both sides castled, at this point Steinitz did make a mistake. Black already has a lead in development, so really white should play d3 and continue developing himself, but Steinitz didn't do that. He played c3, hoping to fork bishop and knight, and when the knight retreated to b7, he activated the queen with queen to a4, and you'll see that this completely backfires on him. Again, he should have simply played d3, and after rook e8, go knight to d2, and then he can follow up with bishop f3 and knight to e4, and white can still get a decent game. Instead, he went too far with queen to a4, trying to involve the queen when he's clearly lagging in development, and now watch how Chigorin punishes that. First, he ruins white's kingside by taking on h3, and then queen to d6, and already black is planning a direct attack. He wants to go knight to d5, f5, bring the queen to the kingside, and probably swing the knight to f4. And meanwhile, just look at white's pieces on the queen side. What are they doing? Steinitz did finally go d3 here, but then knight to d5. And even if white now develops with knight to d2, then it's still easy to go wrong. Black would play knight to f4, hitting the bishop and those two weak pawns. And if white tries bishop to g4, then the queen slides over, threatening to win a piece with h5 or simply taking a pawn. White would be losing here. Steinitz chose bishop f3 instead, at least dodging the knight. But now another nice move from Chigorin. He played a retreating move that's really an attacking move, bishop to b6. Now he might play knight to c5, hitting the queen, but the bishop may also go to c7 and create a battery with the queen. The queen avoided the knight jump with queen to h4, but then bishop c7, and after rook to d1, Chigorin makes a very serious threat with f5, and if it's his turn, he'd like to hit that bishop with e4, and he'd also be threatening to crash through with the queen on h2. But going rook from f6 to g6 is also possible, and really it already looks impossible to defend. Maybe the best defense was queen to g3 to oppose the queen on d6, but then black still has rook to f6, threatening to skewer king and queen. If therefore king f1, then rook g6 anyway. Only one square to hide, queen to h4, and then e4 is coming anyway. So if this is white's best try, then it's really looking bad. In the game, Steinitz tried bishop takes knight, but the downside is, after the trade, black now has this really powerful clump of pawns in the center of the board, and even though we're only on move 18, white didn't last a lot longer from here. Knight to d2 was played, but it's really too late to develop now. Black played rook to f6, and after king to f1 avoiding the check, e4, the first pawn marches towards the white king, maybe queen takes h2 will come at some point as well. d4 tries to keep the position as close as possible, but it does also open up another path for the black queen. First though, the rook activates some more, cutting off the king. Queen h5 was played, but it doesn't really do anything. Rook to g5. Now, don't go queen to e2, because it's gonna be checkmate after rook g1, queen h2 check, and queen h1 checkmate. So queen to h4, but then the queen does check from a6, and the game is about to end. c4 blocks, but Chigorin simply took that. Steinitz still played f4, but then c3 discovered check, and after king to f2 and e3 check, Steinitz threw in the towel and resigned. White is getting checkmated no matter what happens. If, let's say, king to f3, then queen to d3, planning a deadly discovered check, and white can only delay checkmate by sacking the queen for the rook. And if instead king takes pawn, then rook e8 check, white can stall for a move with knight to e4, but after rook e4 check and king to f2, queen e2 is checkmate. Wonderful attack by the legend Mikhail Chigorin, and it also clearly shows how badly it can go wrong when you don't develop your pieces. So it started off with this sharp fried liver attack, Chigorin tempting Steinitz to get a dynamic game where he's clearly very comfortable. But Steinitz seemed to underestimate black's attacking potential, and here instead of developing, he went for this short-term threat with c3 and queen to a4, which did nothing to improve his game. Soon Chigorin also got this amazing pawn center, and white was just way too late to get his pieces in the game. And when Chigorin started to open up lines, not only did the pawns keep the white pieces out of good squares, in the end they even forced Steinitz to resign. So there's another example of Chigorin's great dynamic play, and it's also an excellent demonstration of how important development is. I'll definitely cover more of his games if you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please simply leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll be seeing you guys again soon, and take care.